Hi everybody, welcome to Books Alive for Kids STEM programming, and today we're going to be learning how to make a skeleton marionette. In your first packet you'll have the instructions as well as a diagram of the skeleton and a diagram of the control rods for your marionette. And then in your packet with all your supplies you'll have one ruler, one marker, a pair of scissors, 2 pencils, 1 straw, 1 ping pong ball, 3 wooden beads, and then you'll have 20 of these small plastic beads. And then lastly, you'll have 13 pre-cut printer paper strips of different widths. And then you'll have 1 sheet of cardstock. And then for the shared supplies, you'll have string, clear tape, masking tape, glue, and then a hot glue gun. For the first step, we're going to prep by first pre-cutting some of our tape so we have it ready while we make our skeleton. So you'll do some clear tape and just hang it off the side of the table. And we'll have that ready, as well as some masking tape. And you can have them of different sizes, mostly smaller sizes. And our scissors. And when we have all of those supplies together, we're going to start by making the rib cage of our skeleton. So you'll take your diagram and measure from the top of the spine to the bottom of the rib cage, so from right about here to right at the bottom. You'll line up your ruler and see how long it is. So it is about 1.5 inches. And then you'll take your cardstock and again take the ruler, line it up at the bottom, and mark right about where that 1.5 inch mark is. And from there you'll take your cardstock and cut a strip of about that width. Then with that strip we're going to curl it up into a tube about like that, and then on the paper you'll kind of line it up and see how tight you need to make the tube so that it fits the width of the skeleton. And you can cut off some excess paper since it's a lot longer than you need it to be. And when you get it to a width that you like, you're going to take some of the tape that you pre-cut and close your tube like so. And you might want to use about 2 pieces of tape. And after that, you have your rib cage. Now we're going to start on the pelvic bone, which again you'll take your cardstock, and what I like to do is line up the corner of the cardstock with about the top of the pelvic bone and mark right where the bottom of the bone is. And you can also use your ruler to make a more specific measurement, but for now we're just going to make a box that is about the same width and height of our pelvic bone. So you'll take, you'll line up the other corner and mark just about where that is and kind of finish up the box. That way you know about how tall and how long you need to make your pelvic bone. To make the pelvic bone, you're just going to simply draw roughly the shape of the pelvic bone that you see on here, which you can see is kind of like a heart without the bottom. So what I do is just sketch a rough heart shape, at least the tip of a heart, bring it in a bit. It doesn't have to be perfect because then you're just going to take your scissors and cut out this shape. And you can cut it a little bit bigger and then trim it later as you test it out. Round it out. All right, and then you can line it up, make sure see where you need to trim it, where you need to maybe redraw it if it's too small, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Then once you get a shape that you like, you're going to just kind of bend the paper and bow and curve it so it is curved inward, and it'll lay like that through rib cage. And then for the next step, we're going to make the spinal cord for our skeleton, which means you'll take your largest strip of printer paper, and it should be 2.5 inches. And you can double check that this strip is of the right size using your ruler. So line it up. And yep, it's 2.5 inches. So then taking this strip of paper and taking one of the pencils you'll need later, we're going to roll up this paper strip with the pencil and try to make it as tight as you can, and just slowly roll it. And when you get done rolling it all the way up, just slide the pencil out and you'll have a tube that is 2.5 inches, and you want to double check using one of the plastic beads that the bead won't go through that hole. And when you have your tube at the right width, you'll again take some tape and close it up. And there you go, you have your spine. So now that we're done making the spine, the rib cage, and the pelvic bone, we're going to set those aside and get out the remaining strips of paper that we have. And there should be 4 different widths of paper. These are going to make up the bones of our skeleton. The 2-inch strips, which will represent the femur and the tibia and fibula, as well as the collarbone. And then this 1.5-inch strip will represent the humerus and the radius and ulna, and then these will make up the hands and our feet. So what we're going to do to make these bones is we're going to take one of our strips of paper, any of the sizes, because you'll eventually end up rolling all of them, and you're going to take your straw and start rolling the paper just as we did with the pencil, but on this smaller straw. So it might be a little bit trickier. You're just going to slowly roll it, and you might have to kind of hold it like so. Until we get to the end. And then we're going to slide it off the straw, and you'll see that it kind of funnels on one end, which is okay. You can just lightly release it and squish it in until you get an even on each side. And then again, we're going to take our tape and close up this tube. You'll probably need about 2 pieces of tape just to make sure it stays closed together. All right, and so then you'll continue doing this process on all of the 13 strips of paper until you have all the bones. After you've rolled your 2-inch and 1.5-inch pieces of paper, we're going to take our 1-inch papers and roll them the same way. So you'll roll it completely up on your straw. We are going to do something a little different before we close them up, because they are going to make up our hands and feet. So once it's all the way rolled up and you have your tube, we are then going to pinch it closed. So you get a tube that looks like that with one end pinched closed, but you'll want to make sure that there's still enough of a hole so that the string you're going to put in through these beads later will go through. And then after you've made that pinch, you'll then take your tape and close up this tube like that. And then you'll repeat that with the rest of the 4 1-inch size strips. So now after you have all your tubes created, as you'll see with the hands and feet, they're slightly different with one end pinched closed, so it's wider than the top end. And those will be our hands and feet. So you should have 3 different types of tubes. You should have 5 2-inch tubes, and then 4 1.5-inch tubes, and then 4 tubes that are 1 inch with the pinched end closed for our hands and feet. Now we're going to begin assembling our marionette. So unravel a decent amount of string just to have it ready. And we're going to line up one end of our string to the end to our ruler. It'll be a total of 18 inches. So here we have 12. I'm going to just mark that with my finger and pull the string down till my finger lines up with the end of the ruler. And then we're going to cut the string at the 6-inch mark of the ruler. And then there you have a 1.5 foot long piece of string. And then we're going to do that one more time. So now we have our 2 pieces of string. And we are going to knot these 2 strings together. So you'll just take them together. And the way I do it is wrapping the 2 strings around my finger, pulling that loop off my finger, and then looping these 2 pieces of string through. And there you'll have the strings knotted together like that. Put a little bit of clear tape at the ends of each string to help us with threading the string through our paper beads as well as the plastic beads. So it doesn't have to be a lot, and just at the very end, and I like to just fold up the tape and then cut the excess off. You can kind of just fold it in, squish it, so there you have some tape at the end. And we're going to do that on the other side. Take a little tape, line it up right towards the end, fold it, or squish it together. Doesn't have to be perfect, just so you have something stable to push through the beads. Cut off the excess, kind of squish it together. Now that we have our string prepped, we are going to take 2 of the plastic beads we have and put one through one string and slide it all the way down to the knot we made, and then take another bead and put it through the other string. So we have 2 beads, and they're each on one of the strings we've cut. And then we're going to take the tube that we rolled earlier for our spinal column, which should be 2.5 inches wide, and take both the strings and thread them through this tube. Which, if you're having difficulty threading the string through, you can just push both with this straw until they pop out on the other end and pull through and bring them all the way up to the beads. And so now we are going to start putting together our legs, and we'll start with now taking 4 plastic beads and putting 2 beads on each string. One, 2, now the other side. All right, we are going to add on our first set of bones. So you'll take 2 2-inch paper tubes that we rolled earlier, and these are going to represent the femur, and we are going to slide these on each side. And again, if you're struggling with putting your string through these tubes, just take your straw and push it through. And you'll pull that all the way up. And same on this side. Push your string through. And there you have the femur bones. And now to make the knee joints, we are going to add 2 plastic beads. One again on one string and the other on the other string. And after we have that done, we are going to take 2 1.5 inch paper tubes that are going to represent the tibia and fibula, or the lower part of our leg, and slide those through this string on each side. Again, using a straw. Right, so now we have our legs done, and now we need to add on our ankles and our feet. So the ankles will be made out of these wooden beads that you all have in your pack. So you'll take 2 wooden beads, and again, thread them through each side. And there we have the ankles. And now you're going to take 2 of the tubes we rolled earlier that are 1 inch in length but are pinched at the end, and these are going to be our feet. So once again, thread the string through. These might be a little trickier because they have the pinched end, so you'll really need to use your straw to get it through. There we go. There we go. So now that we have our feet done, we are going to close off our legs. So you are going to just knot your string right at the end here, right by the foot. Just make a couple knots. And then once you have knots on both sides of the string, you'll cut off the excess string above the knot, and then take your string and pull it pretty tight so that all the paper and the beads are all pushed together, and take your string and affix it to the end of the foot using just some tape. You might want to wrap the string around slightly just to make it stay tight. Wrap it up, and then you'll do it on the same side. Some tape. Keep it tight. Maybe wrap your string around, and then wrap the tape around. Oops. Right, and there you have the spine as well as the feet of your marionette. Then take the hot glue gun, put a little bit of glue right between the top of this bead and the bottom bone that you put on for your leg. Just a little dab, and glue them together to keep it secure. Might just need to hold it in place for a couple of seconds. There you go. And now we are going to swing our foot up just slightly so it is more in a foot position like that. And you're going to hold it in place, and again just put a little dab of glue right between the bead and your paper tube. And again, just hold it in place for a bit to let it dry. And we are going to do the same thing on the other leg, and just make sure you are doing the same direction as well. And there you have your legs and your feet. And now the next part that we're going to do is add on the rib cage and the pelvis. So again, you'll add some hot glue to attach this, just the top of the spinal cord. Just add a dab of glue, and then put your rib cage and glue your spine right at the top, like that. And again, just hold it there for a couple seconds until it is dry. And then we are going to attach the pelvis, and this is where you'll just kind of want to line it up. It'll sit right here, so you'll glue it right, you'll add a dab of glue right at the end of this tube, and attach the spinal or the pelvis bone right there, so it'll look like that. And then this next step is optional, but for a little more stability in your marionette, you can add a little glue right here between these beads to attach them to the pelvic bone, so your legs are a little more spread out. So we'll just do that on this one just to show you. So a little dab of glue there, then on the other side. Out. Right. So like that. And now our legs are done. So now we'll start on the arms and the shoulders. Now to make the arms and the rib cage of our marionette, we are going to first start by pinching the rib cage closed and taking our scissors and just cutting off the corner right here to create a seat for our rib cage. Just like that. Like that. So it'll have two little divots on each end, like so. And then again, we are going to cut some string, and this time we'll only need 1.5 foot long string, or 18 inches of string. So take the string, take our ruler, and line it up. Mark it, move it down. And then cut at the 6-inch mark. There we go. Okay. Now that we have our 18-inch long string for our arms, we are going to once again tape the ends of each string, or I'm sorry, just the end of one string, because you'll only need to thread one side of the string through the beads. And we will just put a little tape to help us guide it through. Just fold it over, and cut it so we have a little hard edge. Okay, so we are going to start by adding one of the hands to our string. That is one of these 1-inch tubes. And what you're going to have to do though is take the string and thread it through the opposite end, so not this wide open end, but the thin end that you pinched, which might be a little tricky. There we go. And you're going to pull it down towards the end of our string. And at the end of our string, we're going to tie a little knot like we did with the feet. And we are going to again tape the string to this end, this hand. So grab our tape, wrap it up, then wrap it around the hand. So we have this end of the arm started. Next, we're going to take one of our plastic beads and put it through to make the wrist of our arm. And then we're going to take a 1.5-inch tube that will represent the radius and ulna and thread that through. Again, you might need to use your straw. Bring it all the way down. And then to make our elbow joint, again, we'll take a plastic bead, put that through, and then we are going to take a 2-inch long tube and thread that through, and that will represent the humerus of our arm. Okay, good. And then we are going to take again a 2-inch tube and thread it through, so we don't need another plastic bead between these two parts, because this will represent the shoulder and the clavicle of our skeleton, and it will sit like that on our final product. But we will keep going. So after you have this 2-inch tube that will represent the shoulders, you'll do the last 2-inch tube you have, and it will start the other arm. So this will be the humerus on the other arm of your skeleton. And now we'll take another bead, again, to make the elbow on the other side. So we're doing this all in reverse. And then we'll take our last 1.5-inch tube and thread that through. Again, this is the radius and ulna bones in our arm. Okay. And then one last bead for our wrist, and then finally the last hand bone that we made earlier. In this one we can thread through the wide opening. We don't have to do the opposite. Push that through. Okay. And then once that's done, we'll tie a knot once again. And cut off our excess string. And get some tape. And wrap, make sure you push the beads down so they are tight against each other. And wrap our string up. And tape it around this hand bone. Alright, so now you've completed the arms of your skeleton. And now we are going to attach them to the rib cage. As you see, it can sit inside of those divots you made earlier, which is where, again, you'll take some hot glue, and we are going to just put a little glue at the end of, on each end of our tube that is for the shoulders. And just sit the bone in there. Make sure you get the glue. You might need to add a little more glue if you feel like it's not secure. And once you have it attached to the rib cage of your skeleton, you are good to go. And there you have the hands and the legs of your skeleton so far. So next we will create the neck and the head of our skeleton. We are going to take the last wooden bead we have, dab a little glue at the end, and place that at the center of that shoulder tube that we put on earlier. And just gently press. And now you'll take the ping pong ball you have and put a dab of glue on there. And make sure your feet are right up, and attach it to the wooden bead. Oops. Let me add a little more glue to my shoulder bone just to make sure it's attached. Gosh. Okay. Oh, head's fallen. Okay. And once that is secure, Your glue is dry. Now you have your head and your skeleton is pretty much done. Now we are going to create the control tabs on our skeleton, which is where we are going to thread the string through that will then attach to our pencils so we can make our marionettes dance. So that will mean taking the rest of our plastic beads, and we'll start at the top, so we will add one plastic bead to the top of our head. So just add a little dab of hot glue to your bead, and then add it to the very top of your head like that. Place it on there, and then we will add one bead to our hands. So on this side we will add it right to the edge of the hand. So it is like that. And then we'll take one more bead, add a dab of glue. Oh my gosh. Add it to the other side of the hand. Just make sure the glue is drying, so you'll have to hold these in place just for a little bit. And next we will add 2 beads to our legs. So a little dab of glue. And we will do it right below the kneecap of our skeleton. So right below that. And then our last bead. Put that on. All right. So that is it for the control tab. So you have 1 at the top head, and then 2 at the hands, so right here on the edge, and then 2 on the legs right below the kneecaps. And after you're done attaching these control tabs, take some time to color in a face and rib cage for your skeleton while we let the beads dry. Now that our skeleton is made and has the beads on it for the string, we are going to start by cutting 5 pieces of string to attach to each bead we just added. And this string should be 2 feet long or 24 inches. There we have 1 2-foot piece of string, and we'll need to repeat that 5 times so we have 5 pieces of string. Alright, now that we have our 5 2 feet long pieces of string, we are going to now start attaching them to our marionette. So you will just take the string and thread it through each bead. So I started here at the head, put the string on, and then just tie a few knots. You don't have to thread the string all the way through, just through the end of the string a little bit so you have enough string to tie a couple of knots to end. There you go. And then we're going to repeat that on every other bead that we just added. So the 2 at the hands and then the 2 at the knees. So again, just thread it through a little bit. Alright, now all of our string is attached, and you'll just want to lay it out so your string is organized and it's not getting tangled up in each other. Look at that. Now that we have our 5 strings attached, we are going to start attaching the string to our pencils. So you'll need the 2 pencils that came in your pack, some tape, and then your ruler once again, and the scissors. So starting with the arms, we are going to measure 18 inches of string. So again, we'll do a similar thing, but we aren't cutting it right away. We are just going to mark 12 inches, move our ruler or move the string down, and you'll find where that 6-inch mark is, and take a small piece of tape, and I'm actually going to use masking tape for this part since it'll be a little bit stronger. Let me grab some. Just take a small piece of masking tape, find that 6-inch mark, and place your tape on the string like that. So my mark was right about the center where I put the tape. And take one of your pencils, and I did the arm, which is where we're going to start, and we're going to place the tape on one end of our pencil like that, and just kind of roll it around until we feel like our string is secure. And you might want to add a little bit more tape. It's up to you. I'll just add a small little piece to make sure it's really on there, like that. And then we're going to repeat that with the other arm. And on that same pencil that you have your other hand on, attach this arm to the other end of the pencil. Just wrap it around. And again, I'm just going to add a little more tape to keep it secure. Like that. And you can then, if it's in your way, you can cut off this excess string that we had on there. The string that's not attached to your arm, just this little end, just cut it off a little bit. So that is the rod that will have our arms on it. And now we're just going to set that aside because our other strings are all going to connect to our other pencil. So with the head, we will start there, and we are going to measure, instead of 18 inches, just 1 foot of string, so 12 inches. Again, take our tape and mark that spot. And with our other pencil, you're going to find roughly the center of our pencil and attach the head to that mark, rolling it around just as we did with the arms, adding a little extra tape. And I'm going to cut off this extra string right now just so it's not in my way. All right, now we'll take this string attached to one of our legs, and just as we did the arm, we're going to measure out 18 inches. And on the same pencil that we added the head to, we are going to put the legs on either end. So just attach it, roll the tape around. I'm just going to add a little more tape. Right. There we go. Now, on our final string in our last leg, again, we're going to measure 18 inches out. Do a little adjustment. Okay. Mark our spot. And then attach it to the other end of our pencil. Okay. Grab some more tape. Right, and then again, I'm just going to cut off this extra string. All your strings are attached, and now your marionette is done, and you can fiddle around with it, make it dance, move its arms. It might take a little time to get used to how to control it. Here, mine's doing the splits. Can move its arms up and down. Make it walk, maybe. But there you go, have fun.
You can twinkle, twinkle like a little star. You can jump right over the moon. You can find out where the elephants are.